the next one. It does have one or two phone numbers I will die if I don't have. And I'd like to thank you very much. Our musician has such a beautiful bell. I'm sure there's a wonderful history behind it. Okay, time to get on with the proceedings, and I know you're going to like this next bit. We're going to hear from Dr. James Hurtak. Dr. Hurtak is back in Australia, actually continuing some work that he was doing previously. He's been involved in this field for 25 years and has recently been to Egypt, where for the first time ever, radar was allowed down into the crypts. And we're going to hear all about that. Would you please make welcome Dr. James Hurtak.
It's my great privilege to be here, and as was just mentioned, my wife and I are quite excited because for the first time in modern history we were allowed the privilege of using remote sensing technology and ground penetrating radar to go beneath the sands of Egypt, where we were able to detect and validate the existence of a series of underground rooms. More will be known about this as time goes on due to the sensitivity and the research of other scientists. I'm simply going to mention this at the outset. Most of us who've been deeply involved in the extraterrestrial question know that ancient archival sources hold keys of information as to earlier cycles of contact. And we believe these Egyptian documents, which is pre-Iron Age and pre-Bronze Age, will help us fill in the missing pieces. With your permission, I'm going to state at the outset, we're going to cover various scientific approaches to the extraterrestrial and ultraterrestrial reality. Extraterrestrial here is defined as intelligence that's truly technological evolution in front of the human race that must work within its track of evolution, whereas ultraterrestrial intelligence that is evolved into a energy state or a state of energy essence. Ultra-terrestrial intelligence is akin to what the ancients, the sutra texts of the Far East, and in the biblical text referred to as the avatars, or archangelic intelligence that can freely circumnavigate throughout the universe and embody itself in a variety of forms. In the context of our historic literature, including the Revelation of John the Divine, there is an interesting reference that is made in the Revelation or Apocalypse of John in chapter 12. Apocalypse here is the revealing of hidden knowledge that is placed at the end of the eschaton, at the end of the age, connected with the appearance of other forms of the Godhead. We read verse 7 of chapter 12. And war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels battled with the dragon. And the dragon and his angels battled, but it did not prevail. Neither was a place found for them any longer in heaven. So down the great dragon was hurled, the original serpent, what's called devil, or fallen mind energy. It was misleading the entire inhabitant of earth. He was hurled down to the earth, and his angels were hurled down with him. So if we look at the meta-language or the poetic description here, we see that there is not one form of intelligence, but the entourage of intelligence in opposition to archangelic force of Michael. If we read the full context, genetic experimentation is taking place with the child that must go into the wilderness. If we read deeper into the Greek New Testament, it is very clear that this event sets the stage for the reappearance of the Christ figure, what some would call the cosmic Christ, reappearing with the angelic hierarchy. this in mind, let us go to our first slide exhibit. So if I can now the light. The lights state that the views I presented here are those of this researcher, do not reflect any international think tank, government agency, or research group that I may have been connected with, and represents a unique view of historic material from a spiritual or physical perspective. The first children of the universe were the galaxies and the stars, and then lights appeared in the universe for the first time since no eyes could see them. The void of space was without light, and then at some point as the stars continued to form, and as the universe continued to age, new lights appeared in the heavens. The brilliant multiplicity of the intelligent life forms had been born, with pieces of life assembled in various combinations in various galaxies. You see here a depiction of the child that is being ushered into the new age. The child that appears within the biological boondocks of the universe. The child that depicts the new image of man that is struggling in the midst of extraterrestrial and ultra-terrestrial reality. Here we begin our baby step in the universe. The very atoms in their body were created billions of years ago. Stars that lived and died before our sun and our every year. In recent times, we've seen the appearance of what could be called hyperdimensional spacecraft. This concept was something new. The ancients spoke of the guardian light forces that could walk across the heavens. But in the context of recent missions, particularly by Colonel Philip Corso in his book The Day After Roswell, this context of hyperspace navigation and the war in the heavens takes on a new meaning, suggesting that war is in great abundance in the lower heavens. And the business of warfare is truly a part of several extraterrestrial operations. We know from the Gemini 4 series, as well as the Apollo, that our American space probe were tracked by unidentified flying objects. We know through the work of Dr. Jack Hatcher and others, in re-examining some of the film footage from the space shuttle, that there appears to be UFO realities that are not glass or ice particles. We know from declassified pictures of NASA AS-1470-926 that there appears to have been other objects on the moon when our astronauts were there, as observed by the orbiters. We know through private conversation with several of the astronauts who were on the moon that it's about time people take inventory of the fact that we are in the midst of a parallel evolutionary system that is knocking on our doorstep. Now, Philip Corso following velocity fibers, laser systems, portable atomic generators, third drain guides, advanced electromagnetic propulsion brain projectiles. So all of this, according to Hurtak, was given politely to end of the chain of command through quote-unquote intelligent agents. And this information, particularly the new areas of science, were passed on to the major players of industry, later to be known as the military-industrial giants. I was interested in Hurtak's work because I had spent many years in German archives and was aware of the work of Dr. Hurtak Qufon, who developed a discus-shaped plate approximately 42 centimeters with adjustable jets. And this system, which we see here on the screen, was so well engineered that within the cupola, or the cab, the pilot was able to accelerate at great speeds. Within 3 minutes of testing in February 1945, this man-made safe vehicle was able to reach an altitude of 12,400 meters. Now this is one of a plethora of documents. Another deals with the thousands and thousands of patents that were brought to the West from Germany that dealt with advanced ramjets, exojets, or aeronautical jet-powered planes that made use of air as a propulsion mass, scooping it up by forward motion, modern wind tunnels, especially very modern wind tunnels that could produce speed well above that of sound. These could be dismantled. One such system was brought to Britain. Infrared detection, rockets and jets. The Germans developed infrared night television using a network of ultra-sensitive thermocouples that would permit distant vision even through clouds. 4 advanced German jet fighters. In March of 1945, the Germans experimented with infrared thermocouples and advanced Messerschmitt 262 jet fighters. And by the end of the war, this plane could fly 1.3 Mach. So this is not ordinary experimental technology. This represents a whole category, literally boxcar loads of information that was brought suddenly to the West. I want to emphasize the next, which is the operation of what is called the Victor Schauberger hovercraft. The turquoise green color shows the disc operating in a way that allows for the medium and the vertical projection to be shifted outward into several chambers of the vehicle from its center section to the periphery. This occurs through alternating different directions of rotation. Important in this is the motion as part of the medium, wandering from one, allowing the vehicle to keep its direction of moving forward, and allowing the vehicle to accelerate continually without breaking vibration and double rotation. The medium is here shown in a blue color. It goes from a tank suspended on the top of the whole object to the upward hollow axle into the chambers of the disc. I have the opportunity to know Werner von Braun and his brother Magnus. And what was briefly explained to me was they had perfected the use of a collapsing of the magnetic field. Now, obviously, a lot of this was strictly classified over a period. Oh, we do have certain exhibits that come out of German archives, such as this Schauberger exhibit. was brought to the United States at the end of World War II, worked briefly with the Air Force and the American intelligence community. And after he was the sergeant, he told me through his son, Walter, that the policies were not correct in using his waterborne systems. He went back to Germany a very broken-hearted person. You see the same type of cupola chauffeur craft appearing, however, in Lima, Peru. The date, I have this reversed, I apologize, this is 1974. We see the analysis of the system that has windows. It produces its own thrust, a very unique propulsion system. According to the person who sent this to Jet Propulsion Lab, after I saw this, I became a true believer in UFOs. I'm showing this to show you that whoever took Schellberger up on his model was able to pilot it rather successfully, for several of these have been found all throughout South America. We know through the work of Dr. Hans Fuller, documents entitled Related to an Alleged New Source of Power, that the Germans were able to work with various hybrid combinations of technology, and the use of multiple magnetic field polar denominations were able to succeed momentarily in doing some exotic hovercraft work. And according to another scholar, Alexander Lippisch, developed flying triangles, even a proto cell system was developed. Finally, the whole category of what is called Honeydew 1 and 2 that were armed for military action. Fortunately, the Germans ran out of materials at the end of the war. The question is, how does this technology appear suddenly in the hands of the enemy? How is it possible, under the extremes of World War II, such an abundance of technology suddenly developed? Was there, in fact, a contact made in the 1930s? My research has led me to believe that just as spacecraft came down, Roswell saw also spacecraft, alien spacecraft, came down in Germany, which was back engineered to a point that some proto-hovercraft could be developed, could be deployed, over it came too late for the German side of World War II. I submit this as man-made ET technology. The fact that UFOs appeared over white sands where the German group from Penniman was doing research in 1945, 46, and 47 is all the more interesting from the standpoint that some of the aerospace engineers claimed that they were watched over in Germany during the war. It is possible that higher intelligence was able to see some technology or information once key scientists followed them across the Atlantic to watch the operation. It's also possible that other intelligence chose to make its appearance in the White Sands because there the multi-billion-dollar ET program and atomic energy program were juxtaposed side by side to give the human race a warning that this was the wrong way to evolve. Sidney Sheldon, in his book The Doomsday Conspiracy, paints an interesting picture of how an American officer makes direct contact with the female UFO-nauts in Switzerland. I was the scientific consultant for this book. I will tell you that even though it is written as a novel that's based upon fact, on the testimony of some 22 scientists involved in electronic warfare, remote sensing research who lost their lives under peculiar circumstances during the Cold War. At the end of this book, there is a testimony of the great pioneer, Gordon Cooper, who speaks about 2 days that he had over Germany, seeing the formation of alien craft flying formation. I think this is very important from the standpoint that a man of his caliber should also admit in the letter that he submitted that he was not permitted to go inside one of the craft, but he knew that they existed in vast numbers, giving the impression that someone's Air Force was operating over our planet. It was not the German Luftwaffe on Mars. Gordon Cooper has recently said a few other things regarding what he believes to be a countdown that is taking place, and is admitted to have seen several landings of UFO craft near the Everett Air Force Base area in California. And to put all of this together, we have the type of hypothetical U.S. structure of a multinational brain trust that has put together some 200,000 to 300,000 patents, documentation, dealing with UFO technology and paranormal technology, working through various interagency programs connected with the Department of Defense and the Department of Energy. A small group of researchers are working with reverse engineering, or back engineering, gravity drive systems, propulsion systems. Another group in astrobiology is working with EV life support systems, through systems of classification beyond top secret, which includes meta-language linguistics, how the aliens communicate through different sound structures, a whole new approach to anthropology and cellular origins, a perspective of parallel evolution, in terms of the intelligence community, the collection of documents, the use of psi, tasking, non-lethal operations of mind over matter. In terms of countermeasures, certain programs of development in counterintelligence, and defense and offensive schedules, which make it very, very difficult for the average person on the street to know what is really taking place. Is it all plausible deniability, or is there a high-level operation security taking place? I can assure you from my research and talking to several Russian cosmonauts and American astronauts that we have been an object of curiosity by several extraterrestrial civilizations, four of which are working literally on the surface of planet Earth. One of which is responsible, in my opinion, with some of this unusual military technology that was passed on to Germany prior to Roswell. In 1989, the European press was electrified by the UFO visitors that appeared over Orange in the Soviet Union, who had three eyes, with metallic-like bodies, who were height from 2 to 3 meters, who were after children. I talked to the head of the Soviet News Agency, Bolanza, and I asked Bolanza if this was true, that this event actually took place or was part of Soviet disinformation. He said the Soviets could not sequester some pretty children who were removed from one place to another by these unusual creatures. It was beyond their competence. I later found out that on very high levels of exchange. The Americans and Soviets have worked for years behind the scenes. And what was appearing now is a whole new range of robotic intelligence. Some of this intelligence was known for its symbolic signatures, such as the insignia you see here, which is equivalent to the 7th letter of the Cyrillic alphabet. This appeared on the side of the spacecraft in 1989, but also in 1983 at Volgadrone Pizza, in 1967 in Spain at San Jose de Valder, and more recently over the Gran Canaria Islands. This symbol is of great interest because it is suggesting that multiple operations are taking place on a symbolic level to call our attention to historic archives of information. Thus, if we look back to ancient records, spiritual tradition, religious records, esoteric teachings, with some of these meta-linguistic symbols, it is possible for us to obtain what could be the proper motivation. A planetary base of operation in the Gran Canaria, for example, scientific exploration in various parts of the world, such as the Soviet Union, the gathering of genetic materials from children in South Africa, social engineering that is being done, directly or indirectly. All of these factors are brought together in terms of a larger framework of comprehension. And you begin to sit down and see the piles and piles of information that was there at the highest of levels. Again, to quote Corzo, he speaks of how he went to Werner von Braun, who was there on the scene regarding rocketry, and how he confirmed his suspicions with John von Neumann and others, suggesting that there was high levels of interpretation on the EV technology. He writes, what protected the creatures from the tremendous G-forces that would have had to pull in any conventional aircraft? The present space vehicle had no traditional navigational controls as we understood them. There were no control sticks, wheels, throttles, pedals, cables, flaps, or rudders. How did the creatures pilot the ship, and how did they control the speed, accelerating from a near stationary hover above a given spot like a helicopter to speeds in excess of 7,000 miles per second? Per hour in matters of seconds. In my training in ancient languages, I have the opportunity to work with the Ebla texts, which are texts written in ancient Akkadian and cuneiform writing, found in the mid-70s in Syria. They give a proto-biblical text 1,000 years before the Bible of forms of deities who visited planet Earth. Instead of the word Michael, the term Mikaelu is used. Instead of the word Israel, Israel is used. So we have side by side certain references. And there are various descriptive notations for strange vehicle craft that could truly circumnavigate through the stars. And pointing to the top right with the pointer, notations very similar to what the Russians and the South Africans saw on several of the spacecraft in the 1980s. What we see here in the rediscovery of the ancient archival knowledge sources in Syria and Egypt is the early writers had a much more sophisticated cosmology. They accepted the fact that there were other civilizations in space. And suddenly all of this was lost when the planet was quarantined for what is known in Judeo-Christian theology as quote-unquote soul. In 1995, Washington, D.C., noted researchers got together from the intelligence community, from the World Press, and specialists in extraterrestrial research to discuss the theme when cosmic cultures meet. And the importance of this conference was the stressing of the spiritual connection. So we were not simply meeting with extraterrestrial cultures, but we're meeting with cultures that had a reason for being here, that had a unique process of tapping into our minds, activating our consciousness, or raising planetary consciousness very, very quickly. And it was felt by the majority of the participants that we were going to go into a tremendous acceleration very, very soon. A time of great miracles, a time of great advances. This, strange as it seems, would be in opposition to the military scenarios and the great tragedy of the 20th century. If we look back, even in South American texts, we see that there are statues in Peru and in Brazil that speak of visitors that had a pneumatic rocket system they brought with them. You can see the rocket-like packet on the back, the staff, the rather grotesque nature of the face. On the other hand, there were those statues that were found of beings that had elongated heads, that looked very Egyptian-like. These were connected with what the Indian populations called the ancient ones of the elder brothers. Some that we're seeing in present times were from the system of Sirius. They were called Syrians, or from this particular system. The Africans had other names, referring to the Nomo people, the Star people. These had a special propensity for gathering knowledge and watching the various cultures, and had told the Indian peoples that they had to hide their families if indeed war would be developed by the little brother in the north of the Termite people. They felt that a great time of change was coming, and that those who had destroyed their cultures would come to the end of their cycle very, very shortly by their misuse of technology. Other case studies in the third world emphasize the particular gray category. Here we have many of the smaller aliens which usually are present in abduction cases. The color is an off gray or gray. They lack hair in most appearances. They've been known to seize males and females, which they use as initial specimens for hybrid testing and for the creation of a hybrid race. There are no earlobes or flesh extending beyond the apertures on each side of the face. The mouth is small or small slits, going back from 4 inches, which appears not to function as a means of communication or for food digestion. There is no phallus or womb as we know it in human existence. The absence of sexual organs suggests that some of the aliens reproduce by means of cloning or through some other unknown means. They appear with a dominant commander. The information here is from the tribes in the northern Amazon as well as from the Zulus in South Africa. They speak also of the big grays, which largely represent what appears to be hybrid Adamics, who communicate through telepathic means. What we see here is triangles over the eyelids, so what appears to be certain geometries. They cause things to levitate with the power of the mind. They have been known to intercede when there is a problem among the Greys or in gray human relationships. They communicate through the eyes and are most helpful in terms of physical ET intelligence. Their skin is unique, very much like a soft plastic. Now there are several categories of grays. Usually the big gray or the commander stands out as an authority figure with a humanoid body. According to several of the natives I talked to, he can hold his hands, legs straight out. He's clearly different from smaller gray aliens who are also present. He holds his head upright from the body. And he has the ability to work through different types of light signals. There appears to be a code system by virtue of the way the eye geometries are coordinated with necessary functions during medical experiments. According to Lama Linda, when we talked in 1976, who was visiting the Hopis, there would come a time that there would be a struggle between the various alien races in space, and a small people would come to Earth very grotesque, who would mutilate animals and people. At that time, the Hopis would recognize this was the end of an age, where a man with a tall, peaked red hat would appear from the east, and the iron bird would fly in the sky. At that time, the Indians would collect their horses and prepare for vast turbulent changes, environmental changes of vast proportions, almost to the point of biospheric collapse would take place. When I talked to Lama Govinda in 1976, I didn't realize that the so-called small grays and big grays would be so ubiquitous. I would come across it in so many different cultures. But they represent one of the largest categories of the more than 54 extraterrestrial races that my associates documented. The most negative being what we see here as the insectoid gray, with the small mouth and the wraparound eyes. According to the Zulus, these are small beings up to 1 meter in height, who materialize and dematerialize rather quickly. In the Amazon, there's another category called the Nabas. These are small alien grays, seen on many occasions in the upper Amazon, particularly between the Brazil and Venezuelan frontier. They have the external skeletal form for the most part, and they seem to express deep sadness and compassion. In the opportunities of looking at the extraterrestrial and ultraterrestrial paradigms, I've been guided by my work with Fredo Mutwa, who was raised Catholic, and later went back to his native traditions. In the mid-1980s, I did a documentary with him on the different categories of alien intelligence. I'm going to show you several of these categories, and then I'm going to amplify this with the actual film exhibits. We have what was known as Dia, which is the friendly messenger from Anapu, which is an expression of the larger cosmos, the space gods beyond our Milky Way. These are friendly beings the size of a small 12-year-old child. It has what appears to be a snorkel system that you would see on the headdresses of messengers who appeared to the Indians at Yucatan, Guatemala, centuries ago. And what we would see around the heads of fighter pilots on their missions, the large wraparound eyes. There are also various robotic systems that are silverly in appearance and show a great variety in their anatomical structure. These are involved with the collecting of samples, various tests, and one is known as the which is a metallic creature that very much looks like a robot. It moves on a platform. We can go now to the first film exhibit from Mexico. Again, this is a document that cannot be filmed. We're going to see something that took place just a few years ago, where my colleague Jaime Monson was able to document with a woman whose name was Sarah Cuevas an interesting experience where she saw a being similar to this in terms of a movable platform being moved on with large feet, and was able to slightly rotate his head. We'll go to the first side. He believed there was something to the myth of Quetzalcoatl. And he saw a spaceship hovering above Los Pinos, the White House in Mexico. There is so much happening, it's very, very difficult to compress all of this on a worldwide scale requires for the information revolution, supercomputers, workstations, really to fill in the missing pieces. If I can return to the Zulus, because there's a parallel between what the peoples of the third world are seeing. This is taking place. It could be due to the open-mindedness, the consciousness of simply accepting and humility that there are other life systems in the universe. We do not see this as the Europeans or the North Americans, but we see this in great abundance in Central and South America and Africa. Another category is the Nakasana, which is the most feared hated space being that literally kills people and children and operates on them for fun. According to the Zulus, this being is very much like Mantis Phoenix we find in Western contact stories. There's also what is called the Daisy Bonjina, a small creature with small, retractable mouth, which can go back and forth. We've also what is known as the Apusana, which has pink skin and blue eyes. This intelligence is used to seduce human subjects, to find skin material from human beings, who is then taken into a place for experimental mating. The female, as I say, the human female is forced to give up her child after so many weeks of incubation. And all of these things seem right out of science fiction until you realize in the folk literature and tradition there is a place for them there is in the ancient Sumerian scripts for the experimental deities. I would like now to speak of the Garugas, which are beam similar to the rods that Jose Escamillo has documented from New Mexico and the United States. These are rod-shaped forms of intelligence from 14 to 24 feet in height. They can travel at speeds of 2,000 to 3,000 miles per hour, and they resemble in their spiral gymnastic flight patterns akin to those that have been observed and documented down over New Mexico and Arizona, but also in the labs of researchers, village labs in Phoenix, Arizona, working with U.S. military intelligence. These could be called also interterrestrial in that they go underground and simply appear near the Indian reservations. And according to the Indians, this is the revolt of the insect dogs. They're trying to tell us that we're destroying Mother Earth. Mother Earth is crying, for they have the ability to fly, intercept our planes, even tag the tail of our jet craft. This has confounded our military experts who are somewhat sheepy, admitting that the military budgets do not give them control of our airspace. We also have on the Cortez side what is called the reptilian man. They are called in some parts of Africa the Hubateca. They have been seen in South America. I've talked to several tribal leaders who describe them as follows. They are very tall with olive green or green skin color. They're also very curiosity sensitive. They've been seen on many occasions in about Botswana frontier region. They're not gray, they're not Adamic, they're not Nordic, but reptilian. And the Africans have a ritual they go through to call upon certain of the smaller deities to protect them from the extremes of the experimental or lower god forms. Referred to in Arabic literature as the jinn, or those who come from the smoke, that appear and suddenly disappear. So we can go to the second document. Second video documents. Used without severe legal penalty, but I want to show it to you in part of the process of orientating people to prepare for the coming of the small ones, called in the African language Baby Bongina. So if I can have document number 2. We're going to expand the paradigm from Egypt all the way down to East Africa. Video document number 2. It should be shamans and priests. Is based upon the Egyptian model. Again, I repeat the expansion of the Egyptian heritage through the Sudan to Ethiopia all the way down to East Africa.
A place called Wonder Hut.
We get through on the street,
which means wonder hole. The story is told that when the race of man was driven away from the water world of Nefatsinami, they had escaped from another world aboard inside the belly of a great dragon, a dragon of steel and gold. And then this dragon, when it arrived on our world, it burrowed its way into the underground.
Speak of the dragon symbol of God's revelation.
The people had to escape from the belly of the dragon and emerge from the underground to the surface world. The one of 2 holes in southern Africa, which is claimed to be the place whence people emerged from the underworld to the surface world. Now the statue represented the messenger of the stars, a creature called Mbonjina. Now this Mbonjina creature is said to have a large round head and a body, but with neither ears nor hair showing. Now Mbonjina is said to come whenever
Once I throw it into the water and sacrifice.
to receive a message from mankind to the star god. Now, we were sending the statue of Mbonjena as a symbol of our wish that this great messenger from beyond the stars should come in spirit so that we may deliver an urgent message to him to take to the guardians of eternity. And you know one thing that we must all accept, that we are not alone in this world, nor are we alone in this universe. You cannot accuse a bushman who has lived his life all the time in the Kalahari Desert of lying when he tells you that he knows that there are creatures that come from the stars which look like men. You cannot accuse a pygmy of lying, a pygmy who lives deep in the jungles of Zaire, when he tells you that he once saw a creature emerge from a glowing sphere or a glowing disc which had fallen in the bush. All over South Africa you find stories of these extraterrestrial visitors.
Stop at that point. Again, I have to note this is where do these beings come from? According to the Zulu people I talked to, and those from Hurtak Qufon, they come from Mars. This could be more of a poetic reference. One time, according to their tradition, there was a great war as the planet lost its atmosphere. The survivors made their way, those who had been disfigured, went underground and are still carrying the context as if to renew their genetic seed. They require human precious materials. You see here one of the documents on the surface of Mars from the Lazy Quadrangle showing the major and the minor pyramids. In the early 1980s, I was privileged to be here in Australia where we released for the first time the documentation from the Mariner 9, Viking 1, and Viking 2. And according to the Zulus and the peoples of the tribal areas of the Amazon I talked to, they believe the pyramids on the surface of Mars are correct, are real, and as far as the face form is concerned, the so-called face on Mars, they believe it, as they can interpret it, represents the traditional classical proportions of the human face. It represents, as it were, a model of a civilization that was lost. In 1973, some of you know I had a higher consciousness experience. I wrote a book called The Keys of Enoch. Within this book, there is a plate of the Sphinx. You note that the face is quite similar to that which was found by Viking in 1976 on the surface of Mars. We see also that there is a tubular opening within the body of the Sphinx. We have now discovered through our use of radar, ground-penetrating radar in Egypt, that there are several rooms and extensions that connect with the interior of the Sphinx. This is suggesting, as the book entitled The Keys of Enoch is telling us, that if we put the missing pieces of civilization together, we will see that perhaps the pyramids and Sphinx-like face in Egypt, called in Arabic Al-Qahira or Mars, represents a story of a true movement across the local heavens from the sister planets. We will soon demythologize in the next series of probes to the Martian surface. We know, for example, that when climate studies were done at the propulsion lab, my colleagues were able to focus on the bisymmetry of the face and what appeared to be a long standing platform on the right-hand side of the face. I'd like to go to the next film exhibit, which was the breaking of this story in Australia in the early 80s. So we can move to the next.
Is a tomb for ancient pharaohs. Rather, it's been suggested they have an unproven link with outer space. But perhaps man stumbled on that link 12 years ago on the planet Mars. That's when NASA's space probe Mariner 9 was mapping the surface of the red planet. It sent back this astounding photo only recently released. It shows strange pyramid formations, the largest estimated at more than a kilometre high and geometrically regular as if built by intelligent beings. The director of the US Academy of Future Science, Dr. Jim Hurtak, will present his findings on the pyramids to the Vision 85 conference in Sydney next month. But organiser Gary Wiseman says better photos are yet to come.
Yes, to go with the pyramids, we even have what appears to be a sphinx head staring into space, 1.5 kilometres long. And near the southern polar region, there is what appears to be a city in ruins.
As well, the conference will be told of amazing similarities between the Martian pyramids and those here on Earth. Bill Payne, Eyewitness News.
Last month here in Eyewitness News, we showed you strange pyramid formations discovered on the planet Mars by the American space probe Mariner 9. Now, even more startling photographs, this time from the Viking 1 mission. They're in Australia with an American scientist, Dr. Jim Hurtak, who's made a study of man's future in outer space.
It's incredible even to think that life once existed on the now barren planet Mars. And many viewers were astounded last month when we showed these pictures taken by Mariner 9, showing a pyramid formation on the red planet's Elysium Plateau. Now Dr. Jim Hurtak is here as part of what he calls a controlled release program designed to ease our culture shock. With him, he's brought photographs taken by the Viking 1 space probe to Mars, showing what appears to be a human face staring into space. Some 1.5 kilometres long, the sphinx-like head sits in the planet's Fredonia region. The Viking photo has been the subject of major behind-the-scenes research by NASA and people like Dr. Hurtak, who believe the only answer is for man to visit the planet.
We have to go back and take a look to resolve this once and for all. And I, as an information scientist, will not be satisfied until my colleagues can stand at the base of the pyramids in Elysium or the face of this unusual face-like artifact in Fredonia and tell the world, yes, there is a link. We are not alone. And that will be the new page of human history, in my opinion.
We all have seen this document, 35872. What we haven't seen is the model that was put together privately by several NASA researchers to look at the distance between the face and what was a cluster of pyramids some 6 to 9 kilometers southwest of the face. This was unique because it was calculated that standing on the face or the platform next to the mouth and looking in that direction of the pyramids, one could see the sunrise and sunset over the tops of the pyramids some 1/2 to 1 million years ago. So is this a freak of nature? The supersonic winds form faces with perfect eyeball, bifocal systems, hairline that looks Egyptian. Of course, all of this is part of the mystery of why there are black budget programs. In our work in Egypt recently using lasers, we examined the trajectory of the three pyramids with respect to the Sphinx and discovering a whole series of underground roads, of which there were 6 running from the Sphinx to the 3 pyramids. It was found that there was a vast structure of rooms that could hold clues to why this was the summit wonder of the ancient world, why the Arab historians connected with Mars, why the Zulus speak of their ancestors coming from the planet Mars, why in the tradition of the Kabbalah, the science of the many universes, the fallen angelic is connected with the wars of Mars. So we've reached the point of demythologizing through new breakthroughs in technology. And with our work in 1977, we were able to put lasers into the so-called star shafts on the sides of the pyramids and show that at one point in time, the Great Pyramid did connect not only with Mars, but also with 3 major stars in the belt of Orion. According to the ancient texts, these are regions from which the star gods would reappear sometime at the end of the human cycle. Well, we've seen in 1989 what happened with the Russian Phobos probe. As it went into orbital insertion, all of a sudden the probe was lost. Deep Space Network Tracking by Bishop Olsen Lab was not able to help the Russians. Privately, he admitted later that this unusual elliptical shape, some 26 kilometers long, some 60 miles, intercepted what they believed to be their probe, signaling some other form of extrasolar intelligence within our environments. So we must now look beyond the traditional anthropology, the traditional models postulated by the Leakeys in East Africa, like Rudolph, who said that man evolved here exclusively some 4.2 million years ago. We must look to other situations of ancient artifacts such as the giant heads of Turkey adopted Antiochus, that speak of gigantic beings that once were connected with intelligent experiments on this planet. We must look at the footprints of the giants in South Africa. Here we measure one that is 69 centimeters wide, 18 centimeters deep, 1.54 meters long. Now this was examined by researchers at CFAR in South Africa, geologists, who said that in a series of footprints that were made before a cataclysm heaved them up into a vertical position. There are other footprints in Hungary and Sri Lanka, referred to as the footprints of the Buddhas, of the gods. If this information is correct, as the Acadian Sumerian text implies, the story of some of the experiments that might have resulted in the quarantining of our planet and the lower gods could be taken at face value, suggesting that perhaps the time of change is taking place not only for our planet or humanity, but also for the lower gods, who placed us within the paradigms of destruction, who gave us military systems of war down through history. And then we have the Sea of Milk tradition from India that speaks of hierarchies and conflicts and pull on the dragon or blackened serpent, again, imagery of God the Divine. Nutrition-like intelligences versus the grotesque intelligence. The turtle shell at the bottom reflects the vehicle or the cupola that comes from the heavens of the avatar. They represent the ultra-terrestrial. The other intelligence represent the extraterrestrial, who are part of this experimental station of testing humanity. So all of this together, a new paradigm is emerging in terms of cycling patterns, craft types, physical traces, abductions from plants, crop circles, crash recovery, activities, windows that are pointing to the need for a new post-quantum physics of hyperdimensional realities, of psychological and parapsychological operations, of strategic roles that will help usher in the new eschaton. So I believe that we have a spiritual destiny. Clearly, in the experience of seeing the faces of angelic figures in 1973, I was told that information regarding pyramids on Mars and Egypt would be validated. And with the missing pieces falling in place, humanity would graduate into a whole new reality. A whole new chapter in the human evolution would take place when we would draw and recognize we are also creators, co-evolutionists. And so we can see ourselves within the family picture, so to speak. I'm saying this with tongue in cheek. We have the small grays, the positive and negative. We have the experimental, great whites. We have the Nordics. We have the reptilian peoples. We have those that we cast in our midst. I read from the book of Genesis chapter 6. It came about when men started to grow in vast numbers on the surface of the ground, and daughters were born to them, then the sons of God began to notice that the daughters of men that they were fair looking, and they went taking wives for themselves. Namely, they entered into them for sexual experiences. These were later called the Nephilim, or the fallen experimenters. programmed by the Hebrew sages and prophets. Is this a myth? Or is there a myth behind the myth? Is there a science behind the science? I believe there is. In layman's language, what is operating within our body, our ECT, our molecular machine is the same throughout these other 54 races, which is why they come and go and share the same sexual material. We also know through the events in discovering archives in Syria and in Egypt that there are texts that speak of vessels that went to travel with and also by air. It reflects, as we see throughout the God documents, reptilian beings offering knowledge to the human race. Strange symbols regarding the four sons of Horus. And yet we found these same symbols within laboratory crystals underneath Giza recently. We also experienced in Latvia the use of certain sound mantrams, paraphysical change whereby one person began to glow, like this being whom I'm circling here with a small laser pointer. This appears to be part of a holistic code system that is linked with why the intelligence is flying over the pyramids of Mexico, Egypt, and other parts of the world, even Stonehenge, to call our attention to areas where the whole experiment of evolution began tens of thousands of years ago. Here in the underground area of the Sphinx is one of the openings we were able to go into. And here in Saqqara, example some of the crystals that were tested. In 1977, we found that there was gamma ray radiation in several of the crystals. In 1995, Japanese and French scientists found that there was radioactive trace material underneath the Great Pyramid. Why is that information there? Is it to say that at one time possibly there was a war in space, a fire dropped from the sky, as we read in the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, and the byproducts were brought to the pyramid, which was an archive for the storage of information. We found also in Hungary recently that there have been strange crop circles with radioactive characteristics. Here we see military from the Hungarian police that appeared with dagger counters talking to the speaker and other colleagues. When we were in the fields, the crop circles took place. In one of the chapters of the Book of Knowledge, Keys of Enoch, we are told that we should be prepared for the coming of so-called circular patterns. It's called time marks. It's called round numbers, firelight, the problem of time marks. And in this context, 1973, Stonehenge is mentioned as one of the places where these strange fire geometries or crop circles will be found. Of course, you know what has happened since that time. 1973 and 1991, this strange name appeared in the fields near Milk Hill. The name is